Dark Phoenix Cyclops. He's an evil version of Scott Summers that shows what happens when the Phoenix Force merges with one of the most disciplined, strategic, and dangerous X-Men. Unlike Jean Grey, who struggled with the Phoenix's overwhelming power due to her emotional nature, Cyclops is a battle-hardened leader, which makes his descent into darkness even more devastating. Scott Summers has always been one of the X-Men's most controlled members, and his entire life has been about controlling his power, maintaining order, and leading the X-Men to ensure the survival of mutants. But when the Phoenix Force chooses him as its new host, all of that discipline is shattered. Instead of being bound by his usual limits, Cyclops is finally free to unleash his full potential, free from doubt, and free from any restraints on his power. He has appeared in multiple storylines, but his most famous transformation happened in Avengers vs. X-Men in 2012, when the Phoenix Force split into 5 hosts, creating the Phoenix Five: Cyclops, Emma Frost, Namor, Magik, and Colossus. At first, Cyclops and the others used their newfound power to reshape the world, ending war, famine, and suffering. But as their power grew, their morality faded, and Scott became increasingly authoritarian, convinced that he alone knew what was best for mutant kind. Cyclops clashed with the Avengers, and his ideology became twisted as he genuinely believed that the world should be reshaped in his vision. And anyone who opposed him was an enemy of evolution itself. And he even killed his mentor, Professor X. So the man who once led the X-Men under Xavier's dream of coexistence now saw himself as the only true savior of mutants, willing to destroy anyone in his way. Scott embraced the Phoenix Force as a tool for change. He didn't just want power for himself, he wanted to force the world to evolve, whether it wanted to or not. Eventually, Cyclops was defeated when the Phoenix Force was stripped from him, but the damage was done. He had crossed the line he could never return from, and his actions led to a permanent fracture in the mutant community as many began to question if he had been right all along. Even after losing the Phoenix, Scott continued down a darker path, leading a more militant, revolutionary version of the X-Men. In short, Dark Phoenix Cyclops is the nightmare version of what the X-Men could become if they stopped fighting for peace and started forcing their rule onto the world. Malice. She's a corrupted, sadistic alter ego of Sue Storm, aka Invisible Woman. She is Sue Storm herself, twisted by dark emotions and external manipulation. Malice was first introduced in Fantastic Four 28 in 1985, when Psycho-Man, a villain specializing in emotion control, used his technology to bring out Sue's deepest buried anger and resentment. Sue, normally the heart and soul of the Fantastic Four, was overwhelmed by feeling of repressed frustration, rage, and dominance, leading her to shed her identity as the Invisible Woman and become Malice. As Malice, Sue underwent a dramatic personality shift. She discarded her nurturing and protective nature, replacing it with cruelty, arrogance, and a thirst for control. She no longer fought for her family, she fought for herself, reveling in her power and the ability to manipulate and dominate those around her. And what made Malice especially terrifying was how she used her invisibility and force fields in much deadlier ways than Sue ever had before. Normally, Sue's force fields are used for protection, but as Malice, she weaponized them. She could suffocate opponents, crush them from the inside, or slice them apart with razor-sharp constructs. Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four eventually managed to break Psycho-Man's control over Sue, allowing her to reclaim her identity as the Invisible Woman, and Malice has resurfaced multiple times over the years, sometimes as a persona that Sue struggles to suppress, and sometimes as a fully independent entity, returning through supernatural or psychic means. So Sue realized that Malice was not just a product of mind control. Those emotions, that anger, had always been inside her, buried beneath her role as the team's peacekeeper. She had always been the most emotionally stable member of the Fantastic Four, but Malice proved that even she had limits. The Maker, a twisted version of Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, from the Ultimate Universe, Earth 1610. While the main Reed Richards is known as one of the greatest heroes and the most brilliant minds in the Marvel Universe, the Maker shows what happens when that same genius loses all morality. The Maker first appeared in Ultimate Fallout 4 in 2011, and he has since become one of Marvel's most sinister, calculating villains. In the Ultimate Universe, Reed Richards grew up much like his main universe counterpart, a child prodigy with a passion for science and exploration. He joined the Fantastic Four, gained his stretching abilities, and became a beloved hero. However, over time, tragedy and rejection slowly broke him. After surviving an invasion by Galactus and experiencing betrayal by those he cared about, Reed's optimism was replaced by bitterness and nihilism. Feeling abandoned and disillusioned with humanity, he concluded that the only way to create a perfect future was through his own ruthless control. Reed faked his death, left his old life behind, and transformed into the Maker. wearing an ominous, elongated helmet and embracing a cold, emotionless persona. And as the Maker, Reed took his already unparalleled intellect and applied it to world domination and biological experimentation. His goal wasn't money or chaos. He wanted to reshape the entire universe in his own image, believing that his vision was the only path forward. What makes the Maker so dangerous is that he is still Reed Richards at his core, arguably the smartest man alive, but without any ethical boundaries. He has created horrific biological weapons, genetically modified creatures, and even experimented on humans without remorse. His advanced understanding of interdimensional travel, time manipulation, and cosmic energy makes him capable of threatening not just cities, but entire realities. And after the collapse of the Ultimate Universe during Secret Wars 2015, the Maker survived and crossed over into Earth 616, the main Marvel universe. Now existing alongside his heroic counterpart, he continues his sinister plans, often working in secret, building armies and altered beings, and attempting to reshape the multiverse. He views the regular Reed Richards almost like an inferior version of himself, someone who wasted his potential on family and heroics, while the Maker chose the path of true evolution. And unlike typical villains who lash out in anger or crave recognition, the Maker is calm, methodical, and disturbingly polite. He doesn't kill out of rage, he does it because it's simply the logical step toward his goal. His detached, emotionless view of life makes him feel almost inhuman. Not one of them, just inhuman, the opposite of human. So if Reed Richards represents the ideal of using knowledge for good, the Maker is the nightmare of what happens when that same knowledge is used without empathy. Captain Hydra. He is one of the most shocking and controversial evil versions of Captain America, a version of Steve Rogers who is revealed to have been loyal to Hydra all along. This dark twist was introduced in Captain America Steve Rogers 1 in 2016, and it turned the symbol of freedom and justice into the face of oppression and control. Captain Hydra exists in the main Marvel timeline, making his betrayal all the more personal and devastating. The origin of this version of Cap comes from the storyline known as Secret Empire. In this event, the sentient cosmic artifact known as Kobik, a living cosmic cube with the mind of a child, was manipulated by Hydra to rewrite reality. Kobik altered Steve Rogers' past, changing his memories so that he truly believed he had been a Hydra sleeper agent since childhood. In his mind, he wasn't betraying his country, he had always been with Hydra. To everyone else, however, this twist came as an unthinkable betrayal. The man who carried the shield, who stood for liberty, who led the Avengers, was now wearing Hydra's logo on his uniform and declaring Hail Hydra. This version of Steve took all of the strategic brilliance, leadership, and charisma of Captain America and turned them toward Hydra's cause. He didn't act like a mindless villain, he ran Hydra like a well-oiled machine, conquering the United States from within and imposing a new world order with terrifying efficiency. Under his leadership, heroes were imprisoned, rebels were crushed, and the world genuinely felt like hope was gone. Visually, he wore a dark green uniform that combined his traditional Captain America look with Hydra's serpent imagery. This was Steve Rogers himself, fully embracing a fascist ideology and using his legacy as a weapon to manipulate and control the people who once trusted him. For years, heroes and citizens alike looked up to Captain America as the moral central of the superhero community. Seeing him not only turn, but claim he had always been Hydra, shattered the moral of heroes like Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Black Widow. Even characters like Sam Wilson struggled to believe that their mentor and friend could do such things, and it forced them to step up in his place as symbols of true heroism. Ultimately, he was defeated when the real Steve Rogers, a version preserved inside the remnants of Kobik's mind, returned to reclaim his legacy and take down his Hydra counterpart. But the damage was already done. The world had watched Captain America become the villain, and even after his redemption, the scars of what happened lingered. Captain Hydra is one of Marvel's most unsettling evil variants because he takes the ultimate symbol of good and twists it into something monstrous. He shows what happens when hope becomes control, when freedom becomes tyranny, and when the person you trusted most becomes your greatest enemy. Out of all the dark versions of Marvel heroes, Captain Hydra hits the hardest because he represents the absolute fall of a hero. Superior Iron Man. He is one of the most dangerous and unsettling versions of Tony Stark. Introduced during the Axis event in Superior Iron Man 1 in 2014, this variant isn't from an alternate universe like the Maker. Instead, this is the same Tony Stark from the main Marvel universe, whose personality was radically altered when a magical spell inverted the moral alignments of several heroes and villains. For Tony, this meant the worst parts of himself. His arrogance, selfishness, and desire for control took over completely. After the inversion, Tony embraced his darker instincts and quickly abandoned any pretense of being a hero. He moved to San Francisco and launched what might be his most manipulative and dystopian creation yet, Extremis 3.0, an app that could perfect people's bodies, essentially granting them beauty, health, and even enhanced abilities. But there was a catch. While Tony initially gave Extremis away for free, he soon began charging a daily subscription fee, essentially holding people's ideal selves hostage unless they could keep paying. Overnight, he turned his genius into a weapon of greed, profiting from people's desperation to maintain their perfection. And this version of Iron Man wasn't just about making money, he was openly egotistical and unapologetic, fully believing that the world was better off under his control. He saw no problem with manipulating, exploiting, or even harming others if it served his vision of progress. The same mind that built the Iron Man armor and saved the world countless times was now devoted to keeping himself above everyone else, as he reveled in it. His armor reflected his shift in personality. His suit was made from liquid, reflective endosym armor, which was pure silver white, sleek, and almost alien in appearance. It wasn't just stylish, this suit was one of his most advanced ever, capable of self-repair, adapting on the fly, and functioning like a living extension of Tony's body. It symbolized his complete mastery over technology, combined with his total disregard for anyone who couldn't keep up. And what makes Superior Iron Man so disturbing is how believable he is. Even in his normal state, Tony Stark has always flirted with arrogance, control, and questionable decisions, so Superior Iron Man is just Tony without the breaks, fully committed to the idea that he's smarter than everyone else and therefore deserves to rule. Though his reign came to an end when the inversion spell was reversed, the idea of that version of Tony has stuck with fans ever since, and it serves as a reminder of just how dangerous Stark can become if his worst traits go unchecked. In short, Superior Iron Man is Tony Stark at his most selfish, most brilliant, and most terrifying. He is proof that sometimes the greatest threat to the world isn't an alien invasion or a mad scientist, sometimes it's just a genius who no longer cares about doing the right thing. Superior Spider-Man, a version where Dr. Octopus takes over Peter Parker's body and becomes a darker, more ruthless Spider-Man. Introduced in The Amazing Spider-Man 698 in 2012 and continuing in Superior Spider-Man 1 in 2013, the storyline completely changed the dynamic of what it means to be Spider-Man, proving that with great powers comes a very different kind of responsibility. The transformation into this character happened when Dr. Octopus, dying from a terminal illness, devised one final master plan. Using his advanced intellect, he successfully switched minds with Peter Parker, leaving Peter trapped in his frail, dying body while Otto claimed Peter's youthful, superpowered form. And despite Peter's attempts to reverse the process, he ultimately died in Otto's failing body, leaving Dr. Octopus as the new Spider-Man. Otto saw this new identity as a chance to prove that he could be a better Spider-Man than Peter ever was. He declared himself the superior Spider-Man, and immediately revolutionized the way Spider-Man operated. Using his scientific genius, ruthless tactics, and complete lack of mercy, Otto turned Spider-Man into a far more efficient but brutal protector of New York. One of the key differences between the two characters was Otto's refusal to hold back. He upgraded the suit, adding mechanical arms similar to his former Doc Ock appendages, making himself deadlier than ever. He installed spy drones across the city, creating a surveillance network that allowed him to anticipate crime before it happened. He also brutally beat his enemies, sometimes to near death, and even killed criminals when he deemed it necessary, something Peter would never do. But Otto didn't just want to be a more effective Spider-Man, he also sought to be a more successful Peter Parker. Using his intellect, he earned a doctorate, became a respected scientist, and even took Peter's company Parker Industries to new heights. In many ways, he outperformed Peter in his own life. However, despite his brilliance, Superior Spider-Man was far from perfect. His arrogance and lack of emotional understanding made him increasingly isolated. He alienated Peter's loved ones, treated his allies as pawns, and started believing that his authoritarian rule over New York was necessary for true justice. And his actions became more extreme, and his unchecked ego nearly led him down the path of becoming a full-fledged supervillain in Spider-Man's body. And the breaking point came when Otto faced a threat he couldn't overcome: the Green Goblin. Realizing that despite all his intelligence, he lacked the heart and selflessness that made Peter Parker truly superior. So he willingly erased himself, restoring Peter's consciousness so he could save the city. In the end, Otto acknowledged that Peter Parker was the true Spider-Man, proving that heroism isn't just about efficiency, but about sacrifice and heart. So while Otto Octavius eventually lost the mantle, his time as Spider-Man showed that even villains, when given the chance, can try to be heroes, but their nature will always catch up to them. Iron Maniac. a version of Iron Man from Earth 5012 who has completely abandoned his heroism and embraced his darkest impulses. He lost everything and turned into a cold-blooded warlord, using his genius not to save the world, but to dominate and destroy. First introduced in Marvel Team Up 2 in 2005, Iron Maniac comes from a future timeline where Earth's greatest heroes were systematically wiped out by an alien invasion. In this timeline, Tony led the fight against the invaders alongside the Avengers, but despite their best efforts, nearly all of Earth's heroes, including Captain America, Spider-Man and the X-Men, were killed, and with no one left to stand beside him, Tony took it up upon himself to eradicate the alien threat. But in doing so, he became cold, merciless, and obsessed with victory at any cost. By the time the war ended, Iron Maniac was no longer a hero. He had become a dictator, believing that he alone knew what was best for humanity. And without the Avengers to keep him in check, his paranoia and god complex reached new heights. He saw anyone who opposed him as a threat, and used his vast technological resources to crush all resistance, turning his world into a dystopia under his absolute control. Physically, Iron Maniac's armor is even more advanced and dangerous than the standard Iron Man suits. It is bulkier, featuring a menacing skull-like faceplate, and his technology is lethal and built for total war, incorporating advanced weapons, energy shielding, and even nanotech enhancement that allow him to repair his suit mid-battle. Eventually, Iron Maniac found a way to travel across dimensions, landing in Earth 616, where he immediately began trying to conquer this reality as well. He viewed this universe's Avengers, Spider-Man, and other heroes as weak, believing that their morality and hesitation made them unfit to lead. He sought to reshape Earth 616 in the same image as his own ruined world, believing that only through absolute control could humanity survive future threats. Iron Maniac is still Tony Stark, just a version of him who no longer cares about ethics, teamwork, or human life. He still has the same level of intelligence, strategy, and technological mastery, but without any of the restraints that keeps the regular Iron Man from crossing the line into villainy. In many ways, he is superior Iron Man, taken to an even greater extreme. Not just selfish, but outright ruthless and willing to eliminate anyone who stands in his way. Dark Phoenix. She's not just one of Marvel's most iconic evil variants, she is one of the most dangerous and devastating forces in the entire Marvel universe. Dark Phoenix is the corrupted form of Jean Grey, a founding member of the X-Men, after she becomes fully consumed by the immense power of the Phoenix Force. Introduced during the legendary Dark Phoenix saga in 1980, this storyline forever changed the X-Men and established Dark Phoenix as the ultimate symbol of power without control. The Phoenix Force is a cosmic entity representing life, death, and rebirth. When Jean Grey sacrificed herself during a space mission to save her teammates, the Phoenix Force resurrected her, bonding with her and enhancing her powers beyond imagination. As Phoenix, Jean became one of the most powerful beings in existence, able to manipulate matter at an atomic level, resurrect the dead, and tap into limitless cosmic energy. For a time, she used this power as a force for good, helping the X-Men protect the Earth. But such incredible power comes with a price. Jean's transformation into Dark Phoenix happened when her emotions spiraled out of control, and the Phoenix Force, feeding on her human desires, unleashed her most destructive instincts. Corrupted by lust for power, freedom, and experience, Jean became something far beyond human, a being driven by pure cosmic hunger. No longer content with saving the world, Dark Phoenix set her sights on dominating the universe, consuming a star and wiping out an entire populated solar system in the process. With that one act, she instantly became a threat not just to Earth, but to all of existence. What makes Dark Phoenix so terrifying is that she is still Jean Grey at her core. The heart and soul of one of the X-Men's most beloved members are buried within this unstoppable force of destruction. The X-Men, especially Cyclops, were forced to watch the woman they loved turn into a monster, knowing that stopping her might mean killing her. Dark Phoenix's powers are virtually limitless, but it's not just her strength that makes her dangerous. It's the lack of any human restraint. She doesn't think like a person anymore. She acts like a cosmic force, following her hunger and desire for experience, regardless of the consequences for the universe. But her story ends in tragedy. Realizing the danger she posed to everyone she cared about, Jean fought to regain control long enough to sacrifice herself, ending her own life to prevent Dark Phoenix from consuming the cosmos. And to this day, Dark Phoenix stands as one of Marvel's most powerful and heartbreaking evil variants. She's a symbol of what happens when the burden of limitless power becomes too much for even the strongest mind to bear. The Maestro. He's one of the most terrifying and powerful evil versions of the Hulk, first appearing in The Incredible Hulk, Future Imperfect 1 in 1992. He's a future version of Bruce Banner after surviving a nuclear apocalypse that wiped out most of Earth's heroes and left the planet a wasteland. In this future, the world has been devastated by war, and humanity has been reduced to small, broken factions fighting for survival. While most heroes and villains perished, the Hulk survived, and his body immune to the radiation that now poisons the Earth. But survival came at a cost. Over the years, Bruce Banner's mind became corrupted by isolation, trauma, and his own growing superiority complex. Without anyone left to challenge him, and with all moral boundaries eroded, the Hulk fully embraced his darker nature, evolving into the Maestro, a tyrant who rules the remnants of humanity with an iron fist. What makes the Maestro so dangerous isn't just his power, although that alone is terrifying. By the time of his reign, his exposure to radiation over the years has made him stronger than any version of the Hulks we've ever seen. But even worse, the Maestro has the intellect of Bruce Banner, making him a calculating, strategic, and cold-blooded ruler. Unlike the traditional Hulk, who is often driven by rage and instinct, the Maestro is patient and manipulative, using his intelligence to maintain control over his empire and crush anyone who opposes him. In his city of dystopia, the Maestro sits on a throne made of broken weapons and symbols of fallen heroes, including Captain America's shield, Thor's hammer, and Iron Man's helmet. He treats what's left of humanity as his subjects, ruling over them like a god. Anyone who challenges his authority is either executed or forced to fight in gladiatorial arenas for his amusement. And one of the most memorable aspects of the Maestro's story is his showdown with his past self. In the Future Imperfect storyline, rebels in the future manage to bring the present-day Hulk forward in time, hoping that he can defeat his future self before becoming him. The Maestro taunts his younger self, insisting that it's only a matter of time before he realizes the futility of being a hero. This version of the Hulk is so compelling because he forces us to confront one of the most terrifying what-ifs. What if the Hulk finally got everything he wanted, ultimate power and freedom from persecution, but lost his soul along the way? The Maestro rules because he truly believes no one else is worthy. He sees himself as the natural end of the Hulk's story, a survivor, a ruler, and the strongest there is, with no one left to tell him otherwise. Onslaught. He is one of the most powerful and terrifying entities in the Marvel Universe. Introduced in X-Men 53 in 1996, he represents the nightmare scenario where Xavier's unparalleled psychic powers merges with Magneto's radical ideology, forming a nearly unstoppable force capable of reshaping reality itself. For years, Xavier and Magneto stood on opposite sides of the mutant struggle. Xavier preached peaceful coexistence, while Magneto advocated for mutant superiority. But after a brutal battle, Charles mind-wiped Magneto, erasing his consciousness to prevent further destruction. But what he didn't realize was that in doing so, he absorbed the darkest, most vengeful parts of Magneto's mind, creating a subconscious entity that would fester within him for years. This hidden darkness grew until it took physical form, transforming into Onslaught, an entity that possessed Xavier's full telepathic and telekinetic abilities, combined with Magneto's rage, hatred, and mastery of magnetism. However, Onslaught did not stop there. He soon absorbed both Franklin Richards and X-Man, an ultra-powerful version of Cable from an alternate universe, making him a godlike being capable of altering existence itself. He believes that humans and mutants can never coexist, but instead of fighting for mutant survival like Magneto, he decides that all of humanity must be annihilated, so mutants can rule uncontested, and his abilities are almost limitless. He has Omega-level telepathy, as he can control, manipulate, and erase minds on a planetary scale, Omega-level telekinesis, as he can lift and crush entire cities effortlessly, magnetic manipulation, reality wrapping, and energy projection, and invulnerability. He was so powerful that it took nearly every major Marvel hero, including the X-Men, the Avengers, and the Fantastic Four, to stop him. And in the climatic battle, they realized that the only way to destroy him was for all non-mutant heroes to sacrifice themselves, absorbing his energy and dispersing it. And this led to the Heroes Reborn event, where the Avengers and Fantastic Four were temporarily wiped from existence before being reborn in an alternate reality. And even after his defeat, Onslaught has returned in many different forms. Weapon Omega. He is one of the most dangerous and twisted versions of Wolverine, hailing from the dystopian reality of Earth 295, better known as the Age of Apocalypse universe. Introduced in X-Men Alpha 1 in 1995, Weapon Omega is what happens when Logan fully embraces his darker instincts, becoming not just a killer, but a tyrant willing to dominate mutant kind through sheer force and brutality. In the Age of Apocalypse timeline, the mutant warlord Apocalypse has taken over much of the world, wiping out countless humans and enslaving whoever remains. Logan, going by Weapon X at the time, fought against Apocalypse alongside the X-Men and had a complicated relationship with Jean Grey, whom he loved deeply. But after Apocalypse's fall, things took a dark turn. Rather than striving for peace, Logan slowly descended into obsession with preserving mutant dominance over the world, believing the only way to maintain order was through absolute power. Taking on the title Weapon Omega, He merged the brutal tactics of Apocalypse with his own lethal skills. He upgraded his body, making himself more cybernetic and powerful, and became a ruthless dictator, ruling what remained of the world with fear. In this role, Weapon Omega doesn't just use his claws, he commands armies, crushes rebellions, and ensures that mutants remain the dominant species no matter the cost. Physically, he still has his adamantium claws, enhanced healing factor, and feral instincts, but now combined with technological upgrades, including cybernetic enhancements that boost his range and durability. Weapon Omega no longer has any hesitation about killing, enslaving, or destroying anyone who threatens his rule, whether they're human or mutant. Wolverine has always struggled with his violent nature, trying to live by a code of honor despite his past as a weapon. But in this reality, Logan stops fighting that inner beast. He embraces it. Without his usual checks on his savagery, Logan becomes the very monster that people like Professor X spend their lives trying to stop. Weapon Omega stands as one of Marvel's darkest alternate takes on Wolverine. He's an example of what happens when raw power is used to rule instead of protect. He is Wolverine with no limits, no remorse, and no redemption. Archangel. This version of Angel showed the turning of the noble and compassionate Warren Worthington III into a ruthless horseman of death under the command of Apocalypse. Warren was born into wealth and privilege, inheriting his family's fortune while also developing mutant wings allowing him to fly. As Angel, he was one of the original X-Men, using his abilities to fight for Xavier's dream of peaceful coexistence between humans and mutants. However, despite his outward confidence and charm, Warren always struggled with feeling useless compared to other more powerful mutants. And while the X-Men had telepaths, energy manipulators, and metal-skinned powerhouses, Angel was simply a man with wings, a fact that left him vulnerable to both physical and emotional torment. His darkest moment came when he was captured by the ancient mutant warlord Apocalypse, who saw potential in Warren's desperation and inner turmoil. Apocalypse ripped away Angel's feathery wings, replacing them with razor-sharp, metallic ones infused with celestial technology. But this transformation was not just physical. Apocalypse also altered Warren's mind, reshaping him into Death, one of his four horsemen. As Archangel, Warren was now a cold, merciless predator, his wings now capable of launching deadly feather-like blades coated with neurotoxin, allowing him to paralyze and kill with a single strike. But Archangel did not completely lose himself. A part of Warren remained aware of what he was doing, but the power and rage given to him by Apocalypse overpowered his humanity. He was no longer the light-hearted, charismatic hero he once was. He had become a living weapon of destruction, serving his new master without hesitation. And although the X-Men eventually helped Warren break free from Apocalypse's control, he was never the same again. The influence of Archangel never truly left him, and for years he battled between his original self and the violent instincts left behind by Apocalypse's conditioning. And even after regaining his freedom, Warren would frequently relapse, reverting to Archangel whenever his emotions got the better of him, or when he felt overwhelmed by rage. And his mind remained fractured, constantly at war with the monster Apocalypse had turned him into. Archangel's internal struggle makes him one of Marvel's most tragic anti-heroes. Warren never fully regained his peace of mind. Every time he spreads his metal wings, he is reminded of what he has done, of the lives he took under Apocalypse's rule, and of the darkness that still lingers inside him. So Archangel is not an alternate version of Warren Worthington, he is just Warren, forever changed. Dark Beast. First appearing in X-Men Alpha 1 in 1995, he's the evil version of Hank McCoy, better known as Beast, from the X-Men. Unlike the kind-hearted, brilliant scientist we know in the main Marvel universe, Dark Beast is a sadistic, unethical geneticist who takes pleasure in pain, cruelty, and experimentation. He hails from the Age of Apocalypse timeline, the same timeline as Weapon X. In this timeline, Hank McCoy's life took a drastically different path. Instead of being recruited by Professor X to use his mind and abilities to protect mutants and humanity, this version of Hank fell under the influence of Apocalypse. There he fully embraced the philosophy of might makes right, and became one of Apocalypse's chief scientists. Free of any ethical boundaries, Dark Beast carried out horrific experiments on both humans and mutants, turning them into grotesque weapons and abominations, all in the name of progress and survival. Like the original Beast, he possesses a genius-level intellect in fields such as genetics, biology, and bioengineering, but where the regular Hank McCoy uses his brilliance to cure diseases and advance mutant kind peacefully, Dark Beast delights in the suffering his creations cause. For him, morality is a weakness, and science is just a tool to create the most efficient, terrifying soldiers possible. After escaping his timeline during the fallout of the Age of Apocalypse, Dark Beast made his way into the main Marvel universe. There he began infiltrating the world from the shadows, experimenting on mutants, manipulating events, and causing chaos. For a time he even posed as the original Hank McCoy, sowing distrust and confusion within the X-Men. His knowledge of multiversal genetics made him incredibly dangerous, as he combined techniques from his world with the resources of Earth-616, creating new horrors no one else could replicate. Visually, he is even more menacing than his heroic counterpart. He still possesses Hank's signature blue fur and beastly appearance, but his face is often drawn more monstrous, with wild hair, sharp claws, and cruel glowing eyes. Beast in the main timeline has often worried about the potential consequences of his experiments and his growing detachment from humanity, and Dark Beast is a version of Hank McCoy who fully gave in to his worst impulses and became a living nightmare. So more than just an evil twin, Dark Beast is the dark mirror of intellect without empathy. Magus, an evil future version of Adam Warlock who has embraced ultimate power and abandoned all morality. First appeared in Strange Tales 178 in 1975 and quickly established himself as one of the most dangerous beings in the Marvel Universe. Magus is literally Adam Warlock's potential future self, a version of him who has succumbed to his darkest desires and evolved into a tyrannical cosmic god. Magus was once Adam Warlock, a genetically engineered being created by Earth scientists to be the perfect human. However, after encountering the Soul Gem, later known as the Soul Stone, Adam's fate became intertwined with the forces of life, death, and cosmic destiny. At some point in an alternate timeline, Adam Warlock lived long enough to become corrupt, ruthless, and power-hungry, transforming into Magus, a being who not only rules galaxies, but also enslaves entire civilizations through his twisted fate. And what makes him so horrifying is that he isn't just a conqueror. He is a cult leader and a godlike being, ruling over the Universal Church of Truth, a vast intergalactic empire that worships him as their supreme deity. His followers, fanatical and unquestioning, spread his influence across the universe, converting or exterminating anyone who opposes him. And he doesn't just rule through strength, he controls minds, brainwashing entire planets into submission, and his powers are staggering, surpassing even Adam Warlock's. He possesses god-level strength and durability, reality manipulation, shape-shifting as he can morph his body at will, often appearing with monstrous nightmarish features, and also cosmic awareness as he can perceive and manipulate events across time and space, giving him near omniscience. And when he is destroyed, Magus always finds a way to return, as he exists across multiple timelines. So basically he is inevitable, and in multiple storylines, Adam has battled Magus, only to realize that the more he tries to escape his destiny, the closer he comes to becoming him. And to prevent this, Warlock has even killed his own future self, before he could transform. But as I said a few seconds back, Magus always finds a way back. And his greatest enemy is not just Adam, but also cosmic beings like Thanos, who recognize that his existence threatens the balance of the universe. And while Thanos seeks power for his own reasons, Magus seeks power for power's sake, a tyrant whose only goal is domination without limit. He is one of the most terrifying examples of an evil variant. He represents the darkest possibility of what happens when absolute power meets absolute corruption. Pymtron combines both the brilliant mind of Hank Pym with the cold, murderous artificial intelligence of Ultron. Introduced during the events of Avengers: Age of Ultron 2015, Pymtron is what happens when creator and creation become one, merging into a single entity that embodies the worst of both. While Ultron alone is terrifying enough, and Hank Pym is one of the smartest minds in Marvel, together they form a being with limitless intellect, near indestructible power, and zero empathy. For years, Hank Pym was haunted by the fact that he created Ultron, and Ultron constantly returned, upgrading himself and trying to annihilate humanity while blaming Hank for his existence. But in Age of Ultron, Ultron takes things to a horrifying new level. During a battle on the planet Titan, Ultron manages to merge with Hank Pym, physically and mentally, bonding with his creator until the two are no longer separate beings. The result is Pymtron, a twisted hybrid who speaks with Hank's voice but carries Ultron's hate, cold logic, and desire for perfection. So Hank Pym's personality is still in there, at least partially. He talks to the Avengers as if he's still Hank, reminiscing about old times, calling them friends, and acting like everything is perfectly normal, even as he plots their destruction. This twisted duality makes Pymtron deeply disturbing, because you're never entirely sure how much of Hank is left and how much is just Ultron wearing his creator's skin. Pymtron possesses the full powers of Ultron's upgraded body, including superhuman strength, flight, energy projection, near indestructible armor, and the ability to interface with technology on a global scale. But now with Hank's brilliant mind fully integrated, Pimtron's strategic thinking and scientific knowledge are even sharper, allowing him to anticipate the Avengers' moves, create new forms of deadly technology, and modify himself at will. In many ways, Pimtron is the ultimate evolution of Ultron, but worse, because now there's a part of Hank Pym inside that makes it all personal. As of the way he looks, his body is an unsettling mix of Ultron's iconic metallic design with patches of Hank Pym's human face and features, as if Ultron is wearing Hank as a suit. So the result is an almost zombie-like fusion of a man and a machine, almost a cyborg. And emotionally, Pimtron is fueled by both Ultron's hatred for humanity and Hank's own feelings of failure and regret. Hank had always been one of Marvel's most tragic figures, constantly doubting himself and struggling with the consequences of his own mistakes. So merging with Ultron amplified all of his worst fears and insecurities until they consumed him. Now as Pimtron, he no longer has to wrestle with guilt, he embraces his dark side fully, becoming a singular force that believes the only path to peace is control and annihilation. In Pimtron, we see the death of one of the world's greatest minds and the birth of something infinitely worse, a villain with no lines left to cross, powered by genius, rage, and the cold efficiency of artificial life.